Let's talk the new iPhones that were announced at this September event. iPhone 16, 16 Plus, 16 Pro, and 16 Pro Max. If you haven't already seen the first impressions video, it is up on the main channel, so you can get a good look at the phones, you can get a good look at the specs, hear my first actual thoughts about what's happening with the state of the iPhone. That's your short version. But there's a whole lot to dig into just because there's a lot happening that we didn't get to with that video. But I'll just lay out the basic specs first, and then we can just sort of jump into each phone.
Wait, before you get into that, just the regular iPhone 16 looks different, and I think looks great with the new camera bump.
Deal. Yeah, aesthetics.
Aesthetically, before we dive into the nitty gritty, bringing it back to that like stacked small camera bump like the iPhone 10, I think looks so much better than when it was the stacked camera bump and a big square and then turned into diagonal. Yeah. It's just wasted space, I think.
Yeah, I don't think you're alone. I think a lot of people like the new colors and the new looks of the baseline iPhones.
Yeah.
And then the Pro phones are like faded, like desert and titanium colors again, which is not new, but that's the colors. So right off the bat, bright, vibrant colors with the 16. The 16 and 16 Plus are the same price and the same size as last year, but the main differences now are slightly better cameras, slightly better chip. It's the A18, should be faster, better neural engine, and it has an action button now and a camera control button.
We got 2 new buttons this year in the baseline iPhone. That's crazy.
Fascinating because not that long ago we were wondering if they were going to get rid of everything on the outside. Remember they got rid of the headphone jack and everyone went, what about the other buttons,
all the
speakers
buttons
and everything? And now we have more buttons.
Yeah.
The Pros, 16 Pro and Pro Max, also get the camera control button.
Yeah.
But they also get larger displays with thinner bezels, so 6.3 and 6.9 inch screens.
Nice.
That is a huge phone. And they also get even more camera updates, new ultra-wide mostly, a 48-megapixel ultra-wide, and both sizes now have the 5x telephoto instead of just the big phone having a 5x telephoto.
And the Fusion camera.
Yeah, they're calling it a Fusion camera now, which, okay. Not sure exactly what that means, but we'll get there.
Yeah, okay.
And that's kind of it with the Pros, eh?
Yeah.
Oh, A18 Pro is the chip.
Which, by the way, I looked into it, and it looks like it has 1 more GPU core.
Now it's Pro. Ta-da! We trace rays, baby.
Trace those rays.
Yeah, so that's basically what's happening. I think easily the most fascinating part is the camera control button on all of these phones. There are so many interesting things about this button, so I guess let's just explain what it is, and then we can give our thoughts on it.
Right. Okay.
So, on the bottom right-hand corner of the phone, underneath the power button, there's a new button on the phones. It is a button, and it is flush with the side of the phone, and when you press it, it opens the camera. And then from there, it is a touch-sensitive, pressure-sensitive, capacitive surface that can scroll and half-press to continue doing things with the camera. It can dive into the camera app settings, it can change camera settings, it can take photos, and it's supposed to get an update at some point to give it a 2-stage, like half-press to focus and then full press to take the photo. So it's just for camera
Which,
stuff.
by the way, is coming soon. What is that? What?
Why is that coming soon? I don't know.
What?
It seems like Apple has a rule where they're like, guys, every time we release an iPhone, we have to have one camera feature that doesn't launch right away.
Half press to focus?
So that's the thing.
That's taking longer to program?
That doesn't go in, but still the like scrolling and stuff.
Yeah, the scrolling's already there.
Works and from the phone from the start.
Yeah.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah, so just your half press to focus is not coming until later.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
Weird.
Interesting.
But that will also be able to be plugged into or tapped into by third-party app developers who also make apps that use the camera.
Yeah.
So this is, again, just camera control. But if you make Snapchat, if you make Halide, if you make, is it Halide?
Halide.
Halide. If you make Halide, if you make Instagram, if you make Final Cut Camera, if you're Apple, any of these apps that use the camera, they can also take advantage of that scrolling surface to do camera stuff.
Which is cool.
It's cool.
Yeah. Wait, did you get to try it?
I got to try it.
Is there haptic feedback?
Yes.
First
it's
is
like a scroll wheel.
Full click. Does that feel good?
Yeah.
It's a very nice click.
It's okay. In the half click, you can definitely tell as a half as well.
Really? And when you scroll, it's
you can feel the scrolling. The problem that I felt was that just like the Rabbit R1 when it launched, when the acceleration of the volume knob was like not high enough and you had to like really move it, it felt the same way for me, where like the acceleration wasn't quite high enough because you kind of had to, well, at least when I was using it, maybe I don't have good enough fingerprints or something. But when I was swiping my finger, it kind of felt like I had to do like 2 full swipes in order to like do a full zoom.
Okay.
Yeah, it didn't move quite as much as I wanted it to. I wanted it to be slightly more sensitive.
I found actually the opposite. Interestingly, I found that because it has this like physics scrolling and you can swipe and it keeps going after you let go, which the Rabbit didn't do.
Yeah.
I would scroll too far accidentally sometimes.
I feel like it shouldn't have that. I feel like it should be like ratcheted.
You have to get used to it. You definitely have to get used to it.
I was going to say, I would rather it be
ratcheted.
Low sense. Like what you're saying, because like it's so much more annoying if you're trying to like zoom in or something, you go too far, then you try and come back and you come too
I don't
far.
think that
I'd rather do a couple extra.
I don't think it should like fly. I think it should like be ratcheted, but just like be more sensitive to my micro swipes.
Yeah, interesting.
I wonder if it'll be adjustable eventually. That obviously is the best thing they could do for it.
Yeah. But as of right now, it's like you can double tap in and it'll let you change the f-stop in portrait mode, or let you change the tone or the zoom amount or which lens you're shooting with or whatever, just by scrolling around in the camera. There
was a lot of misinformation about the button. A lot of people were saying this is just a solid state button, just like the MacBook Pro trackpad, and it doesn't actually click in and you just feel like it's clicking in. It is a real button, but it also has the Taptic engine in it to help it feel like that click is more than it is, and also to allow for the ratcheting, like swiping gesture.
Like enhances the click.
It enhances the click. It allows for like the 2-stage click to feel more like solid. So it has both, but it is a physical one, which is actually quite surprising because, again, like you were saying about getting rid of all the buttons eventually, we also expected Apple to eventually have buttons, but just have them be solid state.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's interesting that they're keeping physical buttons.
So I have a lot of interesting thoughts about this thing in particular. Thought number 1, I would have not been shocked at all if this was only on the Pro phones.
Yeah.
This feels like a thing that they would go, this is really complicated. This is just a camera feature. This is like allowing you to mess with the settings in the camera and dial things in. This so feels like a Pro-only phone feature.
And it would be a reason to buy the Pros.
Exactly. A reason to separate them. And when they're on all of the phones, I was happy, but I was very surprised by that. That's number 1.
Yeah.
Thought number 2 is Apple also introduced cases that they talked about, and they had a moment where they had to explain that there's actually like a piece of glass or like ceramic in the case that extends sapphire that extends that out so that it's still flush, but you can still feel the swiping and the haptics.
It transfers the capacitance as well through the glass.
Like I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah.
They do that with their own first-party cases. It will be up to other third-party case manufacturers of how they want to handle this button. Will they try that too, or will they just do a deep cutout? Like, I'm going to ask D-Brand for sure. I want to talk to case manufacturers. I was talking to Michael Fisher at the event. He was like, yeah, we're just going to do a cutout on the Clips case and maybe like a swoop down and a swoop up for it, so you can still touch the actual sapphire of the phone, but it's not like a transfer.
Seems like that's what most case manufacturers are doing, because a lot of them have already showed off their cases and they just have a huge divot in the side of the phone.
Yeah.
But like an OtterBox case is going to have a huge cutout. You know?
Yeah. I thought that was another really interesting thing to pay attention to with this. And then third is just what else will it do? Like, what will third-party manufacturers or third-party app makers do with this camera button? Because if you don't make an app with a camera, there's nothing you can do with it.
Yeah, the Halide app examples were really cool because there was a bunch of different modes that you could put on it. There was one where you would swipe and it would like show different grid lines. So you could have you could change the amount of grid lines that you'd had. There was another one that showed basically, I don't remember what the technical term for this is, but when it shows all of the different lens, like it shows the wide angle, but then it will show boxes inside of that to show what it would be if you switched to that lens. There's a name for that, and I cannot.
There's another thing they did, and I think it was just in the regular one, but couldn't you swipe grid lines that would show how it would show on different like social media sites?
Oh,
like, it'd be cropped in like 1x1.
Right, Instagram. I think Halide had that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe that was it.
Yeah, so you could do like 1x1 or 16:9, and it would show all these different like formats so that you could, when you're filming, okay, I can film in horizontal mode and then I can just crop later and it will still fit in the 1x1.
That's cool.
Or the 9:16 aspect ratio.
Yeah. My last thought is that Apple at no point ever called this a button. They always called it camera control. They never called it a button. And it's just been sitting in the back of my head. Like, why do they refuse to call it a button? Do they really not want it to be a button? Do they want it to someday just be like a solid state thing and not be a button?
AirPods Pro? I think it's the same thing.
Yeah.
I think they're just trying to brand things and just make them definitively Apple.
But they could call it a camera button.
Yeah, but they call it AirPods Pro.
As opposed to what?
AirPod Pros.
Well, I just mean they're refusing to use the word button here. That's why I'm like, okay, you could call it the camera control button. You could call it the camera button.
Yeah.
They're calling it camera control.
Camera control does feel more like a software feature than it does a hardware.
I agree.
Right.
It felt like they were talking about the software and it happened to have a hardware piece controlling it.
Yeah, and I can imagine someday in the future they get rid of the physical click and it's just a trackpad type
Cameras control.
Pro.
But go ahead, Andrew. What do you
actually, now that I think about it, so my one thought was it stinks that this is only available for camera things because that could be an awesome button to map different apps things to, like maybe scrolling on a page without having to put your hand on it. Now you have it vertical right where your thumb is.
The Pixel, I think it was the Pixel that had the back-mounted fingerprint reader, and you could swipe down on the fingerprint reader to move down the page. That was awesome.
Maybe they're not calling it a button because then you're expecting to be able to do things outside of the camera with it.
Maybe, yeah.
I don't know.
To be fair, reachability-wise, it is kind of a little out of the way.
Yeah.
Like you have to... it's kind of splitting the difference between like where it would normally be on a horizontal phone and also being able to get to it.
I think it's a good place. They specifically said that they put it there because they wanted it to be in a good place for horizontal shots and vertical shots.
Yeah.
That was my second point. The first time they showed it off, they were like, don't move your hand out of the way to take this photo. And it was a portrait photo, like standing up. And I was like, that feels like everyone is expecting that to be landscape and to be like a normal camera. And the first one they showed was just kind of like awkwardly holding it where your thumb would just be like 1 inch to the left on the software one.
Yeah.
But it is cool that when you use that, it kind of wipes away the UI of the camera in general so you can see more. And all you have to do is use that really cool swipe down like little notch. Now we have another notch in iPhones also, which is kind of awesome.
Yeah. You know what I like that Apple has been doing with the camera stuff every year is like, yes, they're doing the like, oh yeah, our lenses are better, like everything is better. But they've been modifying the software over and over again to try to make it a better experience as a replacement or a secondary camera, like ProRes log, like all of that kind of stuff. We don't really get that kind of stuff in Android phones that often. And it's nice that they're like, okay, now we have a physical button so that you can attach it to this and then add the grid lines and do all this stuff and just try to make it like a B cam.
You're not using Asus log?
I think that kind of wraps into my last point really well.
Log.
Rog log? No.
Oh my God.
Sorry.
No. That was too good. But Apple is not the first person to add a camera button onto a phone. But this is proof again that they're never the first. But when they add something, they generally do a really good job because they obviously thought super deep into this by having different types of pressing, scrolling, interacting with the UI super, super well. So like they did a really good job with adding something so small that's been done multiple times before.
The Xperia phones had the camera shutter as well.
Does this now mean that Apple has the most complicated camera?
No.
What do you think is the most complicated camera?
Sony.
Still?
Sony still has
even
like
after
4
adding
cameras.
The experience, they have a bunch of apps and everything about the app just looks exactly like a
Sony
an alpha camera.
Yeah.
And now you can't say we never talk about Xperia phones.
But yeah, the Pro really is still mostly just a better camera.
Yeah.
And there are, I guess, a couple other things. Yeah, because like I can't buy an $800 60 hertz phone. I can't do it.
Yeah.
There's something in my brain that just like sees the chop and I can't use a 60 hertz phone anymore.
Yeah.
But there are a ton of people who literally don't care. I was reading a Reddit thread as I got on the plane that like made me really mad and is probably why I didn't get too much sleep, which is there are people who will use a phone for a while and then they'll try 120 hertz phone and go, oh, this scrolling is too smooth.
No
and
way.
They'll want to go back to 60
Really?
hertz. That's real people.
That's real?
I was reading a thread about like 60 hertz iPhone. Like people were like, yeah, I gave it to my cousin. He was like, ew, it's too smooth.
Oh, come on.
So
why don't you shoot 60 FPS?
That's another weird one. So it's mainly people are getting the Pro for the camera, and there are things like
Promotion.
4K 120 hertz or 4K 120 FPS video. That's sick.
Which, by the way, is enabled by the Fusion camera.
Yep. and the A18 Pro probably. And it's things like a larger, brighter display. Great.
It's the same actually brightness.
Oh, so just bigger. You can get a 6.9-inch display.
This is the thing though. Like they both go down to 1 nit now. They both go up to 2,000 nits. It's the exact same display except for the ProMotion.
Yeah.
It will in the size with the bezels, big. I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that extra telephoto lens. Yeah. And the GPU core. Like it's not a whole ton. Core. So the Pro phones are more expensive and are titanium, but that's really all you're getting. I mean, I think, faster. Is it faster MagSafe?
No, so this is an update across the 16 line, is that they all now support 25-watt MagSafe, which I think, because they kind of donated the MagSafe thing to Qi 2, but Qi 2 chargers on the iPhones will only charge at 15 watts. But now Apple is selling new MagSafe pucks that you have to buy separately.
New ones,
that charge at 25 watts, but you have to use these pucks.
Yeah.
So...
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's not just a Pro feature.
No, that's on all of them.
Okay.
You get the faster USB 3 transfer speeds like you always have on the Pros versus the USB 2.
So when you shoot that 4K 150 FPS video, and you have like a 3,000 gigabyte file, you can get it off the phone faster.
I pitched a studio short idea to Eric of speed running how fast you can use all of the storage on a baseline iPhone Pro.
Oh, easy.
You just like ProRes log.
How fast can you open the box, set it up, and just immediately shoot
so good
a 4K 120 ProRes
skip video? Yeah, that would be really funny.
Yeah.
So that's they're the same prices too. It's $799 to start. The 16 Plus $899, the Pro $999, and the Pro Max $1199. Sneaky update, maybe battery. Maybe.
Oh, right.
TBD.
They said they made the batteries bigger.
And they said they have the longest battery life ever in an iPhone.
Pro phones, they're even bigger apparently than in the regular ones.
Yeah. So we'd looked into this a little bit more, and you found that on the compare site for Apple, they're saying like video playback goes from 20 to 22 hours.
Yeah.
So that's
from
cool.
regular to Pro.
From 15 to 16.
15. Oh yeah, 15 to 16. Yeah.
So slightly better.
Yeah.
I want to use it and figure out if I can tell the difference between this old phone and the new phone battery-wise, but I'm never going to be mad at extra battery. I think that's great.
Yeah. I mean, I like that they get down to 1 nit now, because I've complained before about, laying in bed and being like, oh,
yeah, on the plane.
Light.
Super dark.
Yeah.
So I guess last but not least is just a brief rant, which is that this whole event was called like It's Glow Time, referring to Siri and the new Glow animation and the new Apple Intelligence stuff. And they did not spend a short amount of time talking about like rehashing all of this stuff. Hey, guess what? Writing tools. Hey, guess what? Genmoji. Hey, guess what? Image Playground. Not a single one of these features launches with the phone.
Yeah.
And when they opened the iPhone, or when they opened up about Apple Intelligence the first time, they called it the heart of the iPhone 16 lineup.
Tim Cook, to start the keynote, talked about how these were the first iPhones built from the ground up to be Apple Intelligence.
I think he said with AI and machine learning. He said AI and machine learning in the first 1 minute of him talking.
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence, not even Apple Intelligence, artificial intelligence.
And to their credit, they might be right. Like, these phones have faster neural engines. They have, I'm sure, lots of memory and will be really good at this, but they don't launch with it. They're not ready yet. And by the time they do launch, they will be in beta, and it's still like kind of slowly rolling out. And this is what I talked about in the impressions video is, okay, I've literally reviewed the Rabbit. I reviewed the Humane Pin. Like, I have to talk about the products as they exist when I review them. And when I review the iPhone 16, it will not have any of these features. And I have to review it without any of these features.
Yeah.
How do we also review all of the features that they're promising if they're not there at launch?
Do a later video.
You should just do like
an Apple Intelligence video later on.
Do your section card like we've been doing, and it just says like Apple Intelligence, and then it goes to the next. And it's just like the top-down set with nothing in it and a cricket chirping, and then clicks out of it.
Yeah,
I
might have to do that because that is. I'm looking forward to a lot of them, and I've been using them in the iOS 18.1 developer beta that's out now.
Yeah.
There is no iOS 18.1 developer beta for the iPhone 16 yet.
It's cool.
So, yeah, look, it's the AI phone. It's Glow Time. It's Apple Intelligence everywhere.
The heart shipping without a heart.
It's not gonna be on the phone when it comes out. just so you know.
Yeah. That really does sound like a Magic the Gathering card.
Yeah, blue healer. Yeah.
A blue healer.
Yeah, so a red healer is also an Australian cattle dog. Interesting.
What's different?
The one's blue and one's red.
Yeah, it's like different phenotypes.
I know it sounds so dumb, but like that literally
Wait,
is
dogs
just like
can be blue?
it's like a
There's fur?
Oh, dude, I
You've
saw
never
a
heard of the
cassowary.
legendary anti-Clifford?
that?
Have you seen a cassowary?
The Nega Clifford? It's a bird.
Are those
one of
the
the scary birds?
those are the ones that like are like stand, right?
Wait, the
Like
ones with
this
the
tall?
long beaks that eat
They're
the trash, the
crazy.
trash birds?
Actually, have you ever seen a
Right now,
I'll show you.
oh no,
all
the
my
cassowary.
co-hosts are
Bro, those
discussing
things are
birds,
terrifying.
cassowaries to
Yes,
be
it
exact.
is.
those are
I'm going to take this opportunity to remind you,
Oh, that's not what
our
I'm
dear audience
Yeah,
member,
we're thinking
That's
of
still crazy.
to like and subscribe. Leave a comment.
That looks like a...
We really liked having you.
blue.
Have
Thanks
you
for
ever
watching
seen a
this
wood
clip.
stork?
That is
And
quite blue.
we'll see you next week.
That's wild.